What we're doing here today is come out to look at the damage. We had a tornado warning here in Hart County, Georgia last night. We saw some pretty good circulation on radar. So we wanted to come out, especially once we heard about the damage, and see what we can see. Was it definitely a tornado versus straight line winds? And if it was a tornado, what was the path length, the path width? And importantly, how strong was it? And in order to determine that, what we do is we look at the different damage indicators that we have. Do we have downed trees? Do we have damage to small farms or barns, things like that, farm outbuildings or barns? Do we have damage to homes? Do we have damage to businesses, things like that? And then what we do is we will take the threshold of damage. Like, for example, for a house, do we have broken windows, or is there a collapse of the entire structure? And then we take that information and compare it with known scientific information to assign a wind speed rating.
And have you seen a lot of damage out here today so far?
Yes, mostly we've seen trees down, quite a bit of tree damage. But there have been a few of the barns and small farm outbuildings. In this case here, we do have some damage to a single-family home. So we put all of that together to assign a wind speed rating and the EF scale rating ranging from 0 to 5.
And so if you see damage like this with this barn out here and the trees down, what's your first instinct? Is it just to write it down and to know it for the future and to figure out what it is, or is it just like you have in your head, you're like, okay, this looks like straight winds or something? Right.
Well, we look for different things when we're comparing straight line winds versus tornado. What happens with straight line winds, or in the summertime we get these downbursts, what happens is the wind comes out of the cloud, it hits the ground, and it spreads out. So lots of times what we'll see is the tree damage going outward. With a tornado, we have the circulation of the tornado itself. So we'll see trees going in all sorts of different directions, some going side to side, a convergent pattern, some are falling backwards. And that's when we'll see sometimes damage, and especially like insulation and stuff, being blown onto the opposite side of the house, whereas the trees might be in a path, a general path, a convergent path, but a path going in a different direction. So that's because of the circulating winds in the tornado. In this case, it's fairly obvious it was a tornado. We do have some damage points a little further back. So what we're going to do is, once we've surveyed it all, we'll figure out what the path length and width is, and then we'll do an overall, based on the strongest rating that we see, we will rate the tornado EF0, EF1, something like that. And again, the whole tornado is rated based on the strongest damage, whereas in any one point, we might only see EF0, EF1. But again, it's the strongest through the path.
Okay, so this is a tornado.
This is definitely a tornado, yes.
Do you take into account, because I was talking to some earlier and they're talking about how they heard the noises, do you take any of that into account as you're going around, or is it more just you're looking at the debris that does happen?
That's good information to have, but all wind makes noise. So the noise isn't quite as helpful to us. Another thing that we hear a lot of people say is that the trees were twisted. Well, that has more to do with the structure of the tree itself. What we want to see is, how did the tree fall, or how did the limbs or branches fall, what direction? Because most trees will twist somehow when they fall, just because of there might be more limbs on one side versus the other, so there's some twisting to the actual break. So what we're looking at is, again, a little bit more detailed. We might be looking at the way the house is attached to a foundation, even to determine what the wind speeds will be.
Okay. Let's see. Is there anything else? Is there anything else you feel like that the public needs to know about if they do think a tornado happened?
Well, most importantly, I mean, this is severe weather season. This is the time of year that we are most often to get tornadoes. We don't get a lot in this area, but we do get them occasionally. And it doesn't really matter how strong the tornado is. I mean, of course, the stronger tornadoes will cause more damage. But even a weak tornado, even 50, 65 miles per hour, can make a tree fall, and it can fall right on your house if it's in the wrong spot. So we implore everyone, please, if it's a severe thunderstorm warning, if it's a tornado warning, please take shelter, because if the tree falls where you happen to be, that will ruin your day, at least, if not a lot more. So please, we want people to take shelter. We want people to heed the warnings. It doesn't matter if the wind is straight or in circles. The trees can still come down and can still cause major devastation, property damage, and loss of life.
Okay. And you did mention in the beginning that you guys saw circular winds? Circular movement?
On radar.
Okay.
What we'll see is, with Doppler radar, we're able to see the way the winds are moving within a storm. So what we can see is, the general storm is, say, moving this way, but inside the storm we have this circulation. So we'll see a little piece of this storm that's moving towards the radar, right next to a little piece of the storm that's moving away. So in our color scheme, it's green next to red. When you see green next to red, that's bad. And depending on how strong it is and how close together these the colors are, that gives us an indication of whether a tornado is on the ground or how strong it might be. On radar, though, it's until we actually start getting debris, and we do have special software now on the radar that was installed maybe like 7 or 8 years ago. It's called dual polarization. So now we can see the shape of what we call hydrometeors, the stuff inside the cloud. So like, for example, a raindrop is hamburger shaped, so it's got a flat bottom with a little top like this. Hailstones are usually round. So what we can see is sort of the shape, because we're looking vertical and horizontal. So the radar will tell us, okay, does it look round? And then how uniform is the area? So if you're looking at all raindrops, we can say that, okay, the radar will tell us we have in this case, a high correlation of the same type of hydrometeor. When a tornado touches down, it picks up all this debris. Lots of times it's just leaf litter, pine needles, but what happens is all that gets lofted, and the radar can see that too. But it's all sorts of different shapes, different sizes, different angles, so the correlation goes way down. So when we see that signature along with the velocity couplet that looks like rotation, then we know, hey, there's a tornado that has touched down. And you might then see an upgrade to the warning wording, whereas we might say then radar confirmed tornado. Whereas before this upgrade to the radar, we could only do radar indicated, but people would have to confirm it. Still, of course, if people see the tornado, then we could say a spotter has confirmed or emergency manager has confirmed, whatever the case may be. So if people see something, they need to please let us know. But we do have some technology, if the tornado's got the right structure, that we can see some of the debris lofted.
Let's see if I have one. And I just, one more quick question. Was there a tornado watch in this area yesterday? Or a tornado warning?
There were both. I don't have the actual time with me, but the folks in this house did say that they got the warning and they went into their basement, and then it passed through, and it was maybe 10 or 20 seconds, and that's all it takes to cause this, as you can see.